The moment I signed the adoption consent form, I finally learned the truth. My husband, who had sworn to be child-free with me for 20 years, already had a 5-year-old son with another woman, and he forced me, in front of everyone, to acknowledge that bastard as my own child. He froze all my bank accounts. He threatened me with my mother's life-saving medication. He painted me as a deranged woman who abused children. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't lose my mind. I smiled obediently, lowered my head, and took care of the father and son while secretly recording everything, gathering evidence, and laying my trap. Until the day I personally slammed his biological son's DNA test in his face and told him a man with azoospermia can't possibly have a biological son. Today was the day we were supposed to adopt a 5-year-old boy. The paperwork had reached the final step. The staff member handed over the documents. Suddenly, Eric Wilson pressed his hand down on mine. He stood up and faced everyone present, our friends, business partners, and the agency staff. His voice was loud, charged with an excitement I had never heard before. Since today is such an important occasion, I'd like to announce something. He wrapped an arm around my shoulders. His grip was tight. Actually, this child, Oliver Wilson, is my biological son. The room fell silent for a second. Then thunderous applause erupted. Congratulations poured in like a tide. I stood frozen in place. My ears rang. Eric looked down at me, smiling gently, so gently it terrified me. Grace, are you surprised? You get to be a mom without going through childbirth. You really hit the jackpot. My fingers dug into my palm. 20 years ago, we had signed a child-free agreement. He said he hated kids. He said we only needed each other. He said he didn't want me to suffer, didn't want me in pain. It was all a lie. Sign it, Grace. Eric shoved the pen into my hand and pointed at the adoption confirmation form. Oliver needs a legal mother. You'll be a good mom, right? The staff led the boy over. He looked up at me. His eyes were pitch black. He opened his mouth, his voice crisp and clear. Mom. My stomach churned. Inside my bag was a medical report I had received just yesterday. Diagnosis: congenital severe bilateral fallopian tube blockage. Natural conception probability, 0. I had planned to tell him today. I wanted to say it wasn't that I didn't want children, I couldn't have them. I wanted to say I was sorry. Now there was no need. I looked at the copy of the boy's birth certificate. Date of birth, May 12, 2018. My memory tore open. May 10, 2018. Eric's mother, my mother-in-law, died suddenly of a heart attack. Eric flew back to the country overnight for the funeral. He said he would handle everything himself and told me to stay in New York so I wouldn't grieve too much. He was gone for a full month. He said he was devastated. Turns out, during his mother's funeral, he was sleeping with another woman and got her pregnant. I looked up at Eric. He was still smiling at me. There wasn't a trace of guilt in his eyes. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of belief. At that exact moment, right before I signed the document agreeing to adopt my husband's illegitimate child, everything shattered into dust. I didn't sign. I threw the pen. The metal pen bounced off the tile floor and snapped against the boy's forehead with a sharp crack. A red mark immediately surfaced. The child burst into tears. Eric's expression changed instantly. He shoved me aside and crouched down, pulling the boy into his arms. Oliver, does it hurt? Let Daddy see. He looked up at me, eyes like knives. Grace, are you insane? He's just a child. Do you have any maternal instinct at all? Every gaze in the room stabbed into me. Whispers rippled. Did she snap? How could she be so cruel to a child? Eric stood up, holding the sobbing boy. His voice was restrained with anger but loud enough for everyone to hear. Grace, I understand this is hard for you to accept, but Oliver is innocent. If you keep acting like this, our marriage really might not survive. He paused, then added softly, so softly only I could hear, I just renewed your mom's targeted cancer medication and rehab fees for next quarter. Don't let the old lady worry, okay? My blood ran cold. My mother had late-stage lung cancer. She was staying alive on imported targeted drugs, over $100,000 a month, paid through Eric's company medical account. He was using my mother's life to force me to accept this bastard. I remembered 20 years ago. My dad ran away after falling into debt. Collectors came to our door. My mom held me and cried. It was Eric who stepped forward, using all his savings and his scholarship money to pay off the debt. He told me, "Grace, I'll protect you from now on." I thought that was love. Now I understood. It was an investment, the cost of binding me to him. And now, he was collecting, with interest. Eric left with the child, wrapped in everyone's sympathy. I was left standing alone in the center of the hall, like a clown. My heart was so cold it felt completely numb. I bent down and picked up the adoption confirmation form from the floor. Slowly, I tore it in half, then into pieces. 3 days later, at my mother's hospital, I carried a thermal food container into the room and froze. Eric was sitting beside my mother's bed, peeling an apple. Oliver stood next to him, holding a bouquet of flowers, smiling sweetly. "Grandma, these are for you." My mother looked flustered but smiled anyway. What a warm, perfect family of 3. If only I weren't the wife. Eric saw me and immediately stood up, his smile flawless. "Grace, you're here? I brought Oliver to visit Mom." "Oliver, come on, call her Mom." Oliver ran over, grabbed the corner of my coat, and looked up at me, blinking his big eyes. "Mom, don't be mad at Dad anymore. Let's go home." The other patients and family members in the room all looked over, their eyes full of judgment. What an unreasonable woman. I felt sick. Eric walked over, wrapped an arm around my waist, and whispered, "Play along. Mom's watching." I stood stiffly. Eric's phone rang. He glanced at it and said, "Emergency call from work. I'll step out for a moment. You stay with Mom and Oliver." He patted the boy's head. "Oliver, listen to Mom." He left. The door closed. Oliver immediately let go of my coat. The innocent look vanished from his face. He walked over to my mother's bedside and stared at the nutritional for she was drinking. In a voice only the 3 of us could hear, he said, "Stubborn old thing. Still not dead." My mother's hand shook. I rushed forward. "What did you say?" Oliver turned to look at me. His eyes were like an adult's, full of malice and mockery. I said, "Why isn't your mom dead yet? Wouldn't it be better if she was? Then she wouldn't be wasting so much of my dad's money. That money should have been mine." Something in my head snapped. I raised my hand and slapped him. Hard. The sound cracked through the room. Oliver fell to the floor, clutching his face. In an instant, he switched back into victim mode, bursting into tears. "Mom, why did you hit me?" "Grandma, Mom hit me." The door was pushed open at that exact moment. Eric rushed in. He took in the sight of the crying child on the floor and my raised hand. His eyes turned red instantly. He shoved me aside and scooped Oliver into his arms. "Grace, what the hell is wrong with you?" My back slammed into the cabinet. Pain shot through me. "He insulted my mom first," I gasped. "He's only 5. What could he possibly insult?" Eric roared, drawing a crowd in the hallway. "Grace, you're the one with mental problems. You need a doctor." He pointed at me and shouted to everyone watching, "Look at her. Just because the child isn't biologically hers, she abuses him. How can someone be this vicious?" The accusing stares nearly drowned me. Eric held the sobbing child and looked at me coldly. "Grace, keep this up, and don't blame me for what happens next." They left. I leaned against the cabinet and slowly slid down to the floor. My hands were shaking badly, but inside, I was ice-cold calm. I pulled out my phone. The screen was still lit. Recording in progress. Duration, 2 minutes 17 seconds. I had pressed it the moment Eric walked out. I tapped play. The child's vicious voice rang out clearly, "Stubborn old thing. Still hanging on, why isn't your mom dead yet?" I stopped it, saved it, uploaded it to the cloud. The next morning, I went to the hospital cashier, swiped my card. The machine beeped, "Transaction failed." I tried another card. Transaction failed. Another. Transaction failed. I called the bank. The customer service rep spoke politely. "Ms. Grace Wilson, your accounts have been temporarily frozen at the request of the associated account holder. The primary card holder, Mr. Eric Wilson, must call personally to lift the freeze." I stood in the hospital lobby, my entire body going cold. Every card under my name was a secondary card. My own income? Not long after we got married, Eric told me, "I'll take care of you." He asked me to quit my job and enjoy being Mrs. Wilson. He said his company was my company, but the company was legally his. The shares were his. Every asset was under his name. I was just a kept wife. So this was what taken care of meant. Nothing at all. I went home and opened the safe. Inside were the jewelry, watches, and handbags he had given me over the years. I picked out a few and went to a second-hand luxury shop. After appraisal, the clerk's expression turned strange. "Ms. Wilson, these are replicas. High-quality ones, but not worth much." I froze. "This bracelet, Eric gave it to me for my birthday last year. He said it was from an auction. It's fake. Good craftsmanship, wrong materials. And this watch, also fake." I hugged the pile of gifts and sat down on the curb. So even these were just props. He used fake things to keep a real fool. My phone rang. It was my mom. "Grace, Eric came by today. He paid all of next quarter's expenses and brought me really good nutritional supplements. Did you two fight? Eric's a good man. Whatever it is, talk it out. Don't be stubborn, Eric." Freezing my cards with one hand, playing the devoted son-in-law with the other. He wanted me to understand one thing completely. Every breath I took was something he allowed. That night, Eric came home, with the child, as if nothing had happened. He handed me a cake. "Grace, today's our 20th wedding anniversary. I ordered your favorite cake." Oliver ran over too, holding a crooked handmade card. "Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong yesterday. Our family will always be together." Warm lights, sugary frosting. I looked at them. The last bit of warmth in my heart went out. A few days later, Eric suggested we have a serious talk. In the study, he poured me a glass of water. "Grace, I know you feel wronged." He sighed. "But Oliver's existence is a fact. We have to move forward." "How do I move forward?" I asked. "By pretending you didn't spend 20 years agreeing to be child-free with me, only for you to suddenly have a 5-year-old biological son?" Eric fell silent for a moment. "There's something I never told you." He opened a drawer, took out a document, and pushed it toward me. "Uterine fibroid removal surgery consent and post-op report patient, Grace Wilson. Date, November 2017. My pupils shrank." "What is this?" "I've never had uterine surgery. 7 years ago," Eric said evenly. "During a checkup, they found a very large fibroid. The doctor said there was a cancer risk and it had to be removed immediately. The surgery was urgent. You are under general anesthesia." I signed the consent. "You recovered well, and I didn't want you to worry, so I never told you the details." He paused, then looked at me with something like pity. "Grace, that surgery, to save your life, the removal was extensive. The doctor said it back then, you would almost certainly never be able to conceive naturally." The paper shook violently in my hands. "So, you knew all along that I couldn't have children?" "I knew." Eric nodded. "That's why I never pressured you. I said we'd be child-free because I didn't want you to feel hurt. Grace, I love you. Whether you can have kids has nothing to do with it." He stepped toward me, trying to hug me. I shoved him away. "You're lying," I screamed. "I just had a full gynecological exam last month. The doctor only said my fallopian tubes were blocked. No one ever mentioned uterine removal." Eric's face stiffened briefly, then smoothed out. "Maybe it was a misdiagnosis. Or maybe the hospital you went to wasn't professional enough." "Grace, the report is right here, black and white." I stared at the document. Official stamps. His signature. Real? Fake? I couldn't tell anymore. But if it was real, then it meant that without my knowledge, my body, my right to reproduce, had already been permanently taken away. By him. By a piece of paper he signed. And while soothing me with a child-free agreement, he went outside our marriage and had another woman bear his child, then wrapped my infertility into a story of his noble, unwavering love. "Grace." Eric moved closer again, holding my icy hand, his voice gentle as a snake's hiss. "The past doesn't matter anymore. Now we have Oliver. As long as you treat him well, we'll still be a happy family. My mom's medical bills, your mom's treatment, our future, I'll arrange everything. You just need to be obedient." He hugged me. My body was stiff, like a corpse, at an angle he couldn't see. My eyes were wide open, staring at my distorted reflection in the glass of the bookshelf. The next day, I changed. I smiled at Oliver. I cooked for him. I walked him to school. When Eric came home at night, I ran his bath. He looked surprised, then satisfied. He stroked my hair. "Grace, I'm glad you figured it out. Our family, let's live well. I nodded gently. Oliver pulled a face at me when Eric wasn't looking, silently mouthing, "Who are you fooling?" I just smiled. I began to document everything. Oliver deliberately knocked over the hot milk I had warmed for him, scalding the back of my hand, then ran crying to Eric. Mom didn't hold it steady. She scared me. I photographed the burn and the spilled milk from multiple angles. Outside my mom's hospital room, Oliver deliberately tripped a nurse's aide, nearly causing my mother to fall out of bed. I retrieved the hallway security footage. Eric said to me, "He's just a kid. He's playful. Don't make a big deal out of it." I recorded that too. I got better and better at acting. Eric grew more and more at ease. He started bringing Oliver and me to more public events, carefully crafting the image of a happy blended family. He enjoyed the sense of control. What he didn't know is that every time I left the house, my bag always contained three things: my diagnosis report for fallopian tube blockage, a voice recorder, a small concealed camera. He also didn't know that I had secretly contacted a college classmate, someone who used to work in IT and now specialized in data security, using a small amount of cash I had hidden in a false compartment of my jewelry box. I asked him to help me build an absolutely private cloud storage system. Every recording, every video, every photo, every scanned document, uploaded in real time. Eric thought the cage door was locked tight. He didn't realize the prey was slowly grinding down the lock with its teeth. The calm shattered on a weekend afternoon. I was organizing clothes in the walk-in closet when Oliver slipped in. He leaned against the doorframe, his eyes roaming over me. That look didn't belong on a 5-year-old's face. "Hey," he said, "your body's not bad. Better than my real mom's." I froze, then looked at him coldly. "Get out." He didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer. "My dad said you can't have kids." Pretty pathetic. "But it's okay, when I grow up, I can." He didn't finish. His hand reached out, trying to touch my skirt. I grabbed his wrist hard and flung it away. "Get lost." He staggered back, then suddenly yanked open his own collar and screamed, "Dad." "Mom hit me. She pulled my clothes." Eric rushed in. Oliver immediately threw himself into his arms, sobbing hysterically. "Dad, Mom tried to take my clothes off. She touched me. I'm so scared." Eric's face turned pitch black. He looked at me with undisguised disgust and suspicion. "Grace? He's a child. You could actually have such filthy thoughts about a child? Are you seriously mentally sick?" I was shaking with rage. "He's lying. He tried to harass me. He's 5. Eric roared. "What does a 5-year-old know about harassment?" "Grace, you're completely insane. Keep this up and get out of this house. And don't ever think about seeing your mother again." He scooped Oliver up and slammed the door behind him. I slid down onto the floor. My stomach churned violently. I gagged, nauseous to the point of dry heaving. 5 years old? No. That child's psychological age was far older than 5. His malice had been carefully cultivated, and Eric chose to believe him without question, to shield him completely. This family, this marriage, was rotten to the core. I went to the hospital and told my mom everything. I thought she would tell me to endure it, to be patient. She listened in silence for a long time. Her body was so thin it was almost just bones. Her hand gripped mine tightly. "Grace," she said, "get a divorce." I froze. "Mom, my life is borrowed time," she said softly, but firmly. "Every extra day is a gain. I can't watch my daughter rot in hell just to keep me alive. We'll stop the meds. I'll go with you. We're going home." My tears burst out all at once. For the first time in 20 years, I realized I wasn't alone. I still had my mother. I wasn't fighting by myself. The decision was made. I quietly began consulting lawyers and organizing my evidence. Eric sensed something and tightened his control over me. The breaking point came on a Wednesday afternoon. I went to the supermarket to buy groceries, planning to make soup for my mom. In a secluded corner of the underground parking garage, a battered van suddenly sped up and blocked my path. The door slid open. 2 boys who looked 15 or 16 jumped out, wearing masks. Another stayed inside the van, holding up a phone as if recording. "Hey, lady, let's chat," one of them said, reaching for me. I screamed and fought back, swinging my grocery bag at him. Inside were cans, heavy. In the chaos, I kicked another boy in the knee. He screamed in pain. From inside the van, Someone shouted. Damn it! She's fighting back. Did you get it on video? Hold her down. They started dragging me toward the van door. Then, rapid footsteps. Eric appeared, with 2 mall security guards behind him. Stop! He shouted. The boys froze for a split second. Eric rushed forward and punched the one grabbing me, knocking him to the ground. For one brief moment, I thought he was saving me. The next second, Eric turned and slapped me hard across the face. My ears rang. I tasted blood. Grace, look at what you've done, Eric yelled, pointing at the boy clutching his injured knee and another bleeding from the forehead where I'd hit him with a can. He shouted at the guards and the gathering onlookers, they're my son Oliver's classmates. Just fooling around. Filming a prank video. And she went this far, beating 2 kids like this. I covered my face, unable to believe what I was hearing. They tried to kidnap me. I screamed. Kidnap you? Eric sneered, pointing at the van. That's one of Oliver's classmates' old family cars. They were just hiding in it to scare you. The phone was for a prank video. Grace, are you paranoid? You'd hurt minors this badly? The guards and bystanders looked at the injured kids, then at the furious husband, then at me, a hysterical woman. The sympathy in their eyes slowly turned into doubt, then condemnation. Kids' pranks can go too far, but an adult shouldn't hit that hard. Yeah, look at that kid's head, he's bleeding. I heard she can't have children. She's always been awful to her husband's kid. The murmurs drilled into my ears. Eric pulled out his phone and made a call. Hello, Lawyer Lee? Yes. Something happened again. My wife's mental state may be unstable. She attacked minors. I need you to handle it. He hung up and looked at me coldly. Grace, I really can't protect you this time. Get ready to take legal responsibility. I stared at his righteous, indignant face. The last spark in my heart went out. This man was no longer the Eric I thought I knew. Or maybe, I had never truly known him at all. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and stood up straight. My voice was eerily calm. Eric, I want a divorce. Eric clearly hadn't expected me to be so direct. He froze for a second, then frowned. What are you pulling now? You hurt someone. Whether we get divorced or not isn't up to you. It is, I said, looking straight at him, every word deliberate. This marriage is over. Now. Immediately. Eric stared at me for several seconds. Then he laughed. A cruel, knowing smile. Fine, Grace. This is your choice, he said. Don't regret it. The divorce went more smoothly than I'd expected. Eric probably believed that a penniless woman with a critically ill mother and a record of violence against minors wouldn't survive 3 days without him. That I'd soon come crawling back, begging. He signed quickly. I didn't get a single dollar. The justification, the wife had no income during the marriage and bears major fault. My lawyer argued hard, but against Eric's powerful legal team and their carefully curated evidence, the results were limited. I made only one demand, that he remain fully responsible for my mother's treatment until a matching targeted drug or new therapy was found. It was a promise he himself had made years ago, standing in front of my mother, pounding his chest, perhaps to show he'd done his duty. Eric agreed. He signed a supplementary agreement. The day everything was finalized, I held the thin divorce certificate, took my mother with me, and boarded a high-speed train heading south. Our destination was a small third-tier coastal city. Clean air, low cost of living. A college roommate of mine lived there and was willing to take us in temporarily. As the train pulled away, I watched the city blur past the window. No reluctance, only a vast, barren calm. After we settled in, I sent an email to Eric's private address, from a new number. No message body, just one attachment. Inside was my real diagnosis report, bilateral fallopian tube obstruction. I deliberately named the file, Recommendation, Paternity Test, PDF after sending it. I blocked the email address. I knew he would see it. I knew his suspicious nature, he would investigate. Once doubt is planted, it grows on its own. 3 days later, an unfamiliar number called me nonstop. I answered. Eric's voice came through, suppressed rage mixed with unmistakable panic. Grace, what the hell do you mean? Where did that report come from? Are you trying to drive a wedge between me and Oliver? Standing by the sea, my voice was light. Eric, I'm just giving you a friendly reminder. After all, a man diagnosed with azoospermia can't have a biological son. Dead silence. Only his heavy breathing. What did you say? Azoospermia? His voice began to tremble. Oh, you didn't see the doctor's note on the last page? I said calmly. 7 years ago, when you accompanied me for that physical exam, the doctor suggested you get checked too. Don't you remember? Your report was in the same folder as mine. Severe oligoasthenospermia. Natural conception probability, close to 0. That's impossible, Eric roared. You forged it, Grace. You forged medical records to get back at me, whether it's forged or not. I smiled softly. You can just take Oliver for a paternity test and find out. Good luck, Mr. Wilson. I hung up, blocked the number. The sea stretched out peacefully in the distance. Seagulls skimmed the surface. A month later, I heard the aftermath from an old classmate. Eric did take Oliver for a paternity test. The most authoritative institution. Expedited. Result: Eric Wilson is excluded as Oliver Wilson's biological father. Eric collapsed on the spot. They said he struck Oliver outside the testing center, screaming hysterically. The child was terrified and in panic, blurted out the truth. My mom told me to. She said if I called you Dad and listened to you, you'd give us lots of money. Houses. She said your wife couldn't have kids and you really wanted a son. Who's your mom? Zoe Zhang. My mom's name is Zoe Zhang. Eric remembered. Zoe Zhang, a former intern at his company. 7 years ago, they'd had a brief affair. She took a sum of money and left, saying she'd get an abortion. She never did. Somehow, she learned about Eric's medical condition and his obsession with having a son, so she planned carefully for years. She found a man who vaguely resembled Eric, had a child with him, then waited until the boy was 5, his features more defined. Through bribery and manipulation in the adoption system, she orchestrated the shocking farce of adopting his own biological son. She gambled on Eric's hunger for a blood heir, and on the fact that he would never doubt a child who kind of looked like him and appeared at the perfect time. She won the first half of the bet. Eric clung to the child like a lifeline, pouring in all his emotions and resources, until my email shattered the illusion. Eric confronted Zoe. It was ugly. She screamed, rolled on the floor, accused him of being irresponsible, insisted the child was his. But when Eric threw the paternity report in her face and threatened to report her for fraud, she folded. She confessed. But the money was mostly gone. Eric lost both money and pride, becoming the biggest joke in his social circle. The precious son he had cherished, whom he'd hurt his wife for, now looked at him like a stranger, even cursed him. Serves you right, old liar. All of Eric's fatherhood, responsibility, and family integrity were built on sand. The sandcastle collapsed. He was buried underneath it. When my classmate told me all this, their voice carried a hint of pity. I felt nothing. Peace didn't last long. Eric came looking for me, downstairs from my rented apartment. He was much thinner, hollow-eyed, unshaven, none of the polished executive left. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, then reddened. Grace, his voice was hoarse. I walked past him to throw out the trash. He chased after me and blocked my path. Grace, I know I was wrong. I was tricked by that bitch. I was stupid. I'm not human. He slapped himself twice, loud. Forgive me, please. Let's remarry. I'll listen to you about everything. I'll never mention kids again. Just us, like before. I watched his performance, unmoved. Move. He didn't. He pulled out a thick envelope and shoved it toward me. Money. I'll give you money. Look, cash. Cards too. Everything's yours. I'll pay for your mom's treatment for life. We'll go back to New York. I'll buy you the biggest house, the best jewelry. Bills scattered across the ground. Red notes lifted into the sea breeze. Passers-by stared. It was absurd. 20 years of love, reduced, in his mind, to something that could be bought back with money. Eric, I said calmly, your money disgusts me now. His face drained of color. At that moment, my roommate's husband, a tall, easygoing local guy, came home from work. Seeing the scene, he immediately stepped in front of me. Hey, he said, protective. Who are you? Why are you harassing my wife's friend? Eric saw the unfamiliar man, and his eyes instantly darkened with jealousy. My wife's friend? He sneered. Grace, how long has it even been since the divorce? And you've already found your next guy? You really can't stand being alone for even a moment, can you? I smiled and said to my roommate's husband, "It's okay, brotherly, just a lunatic. Let's go upstairs." We turned to leave. Behind me, Eric roared, "Grace, don't regret this. Don't forget, your mom's medication is still in my hands." I stopped. The same old trick. I turned around, looked at the madness in his eyes, pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and held the lit screen up for him to see. "Eric," I said calmly, "under the supplementary divorce agreement, you are legally obligated to continue paying for my mother's treatment. If you cut off her medication, I will call the police and sue you for breach of contract. And while I'm at it, I'll submit all the evidence you left behind: suspected falsification of medical records, attempted control of my personal freedom, and covering up attempted crimes by minors, to both the authorities and your business competitors." I finished in one breath and watched the color drain from his face. "You can try it," I said evenly. "Let's see whether your money is stronger, or the law and evidence are." Eric stared at me as if I were a stranger. Only then did he truly realize that the Grace who had once been obedient, trusting, and guileless was gone. Standing before him now was a calm, rational opponent, one who held more than enough leverage to destroy him. His lips trembled. He took a step back. I put my phone away and turned to go upstairs. The final card came quickly. My mother's attending physician contacted me from overseas. Sounding urgent. MS. Grace. The third-generation targeted drug your mother is using, the only legally approved supply channel in the country, has suddenly been cut off. We've confirmed it was a unilateral contract termination by the purchaser. We're urgently looking for alternatives, but it will take time, and the cost may be. I understood immediately. Eric. He had gone for the kill, cutting off the source. Without the medication, my mother wouldn't last 3 months. That afternoon, Eric called from a new number. "Grace." His voice was calm again, even carrying a weary confidence. "Let's talk. One last time." "About what?" "I have the medication. Enough for your mother to last 2 years. He said. "I'm waiting at the old place, the revolving restaurant where we had our first date. I've booked the entire place. Let's have dinner and talk things through. After that, you take the medicine. I promise I'll never bother you again." I knew it was a trap, but I had no choice. I told my mother I was going to see Eric one last time to get the medicine back. She held my hand for a long time. "Grace," she said quietly, "I'm not afraid of dying. Don't humiliate yourself again for my sake." I hugged her frail body. "Mom, this time I won't. This time, we fight together." I took my mother with me to the revolving restaurant. As expected, Eric had booked the place out. The setup was romantic: flowers, candlelight, only one table. When he saw me holding my mother's hand, he paused briefly, then smiled again. "Auntie's here too? Perfect. Let's have a family reunion dinner." During the meal, Eric talked endlessly: apologies, memories, visions of a family of 3. He even served my mother food and asked after her health attentively. My mother listened quietly, eating. At the end, Eric took out an elegant metal medicine case and pushed it toward me. "The medication is here," he said softly. "Grace, come back. Let's start over. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I looked at the case, then at Eric's hopeful face. Then I looked at my mother. My mother set down her chopsticks, wiped her mouth, and looked at Eric, the man she once regarded as half a son. She spoke slowly. "Eric, I'm dying. Before I go, there are a few things I want to say." "Yes, Auntie," Eric said quickly. "For 20 years, I believed that giving my daughter to you was the most reassuring decision of my life." My mother said calmly, "You helped us pay off debts, supported Grace through school, and took good care of this sick old woman. I was grateful." Eric's face softened. "That was all my responsibility, but I don't think that anymore." My mother interrupted, her gaze steady and sharp. "Now I think the 20 years my daughter spent with you were a prison sentence. What you did wasn't kindness, it was debt. A cage you built for her with money and fake affection." Eric's face changed. "Auntie, you misunderstand." "I don't." My mother shook her head. "I see very clearly. Holding medicine hostage to force my daughter back to you isn't love. It's control. You can't stand that she left and is living freely." My mother held my hand. Her hand was thin, but warm. "Eric, We don't want the medicine anymore. Both Eric and I froze. She looked at me and smiled. Her eyes glistened, but there was peace and resolve in them. Grace, I've lived over 60 years. I've had enough. In the time I have left, I want to watch my daughter live freely, not sell herself back to hell just to keep me alive. She turned back to Eric, speaking each word clearly. Your family, your reunion. We can't afford it. This meal counts as us thanking you for what you did years ago and settling everything between us. From now on, we go our separate ways. She stood up and pulled me with her. Grace, let's go. The smell in here makes me sick. Eric stood frozen, his face ashen. All his carefully planned emotional appeal and life-saving leverage shattered under my mother's calm, unyielding words. The final shackle he used to bind me, moral pressure and emotional blackmail, was cut off by my mother herself. As we reached the door, his hoarse voice came from behind us. Take the medicine, please. I didn't turn around. Donate it to someone who needs it more. Mr. Wilson. The elevator doors closed, sealing off his collapsed figure. Later, I learned that not long after that night, Eric restored the medication supply and transferred a large sum, far more than necessary, into my mother's treatment account. Perhaps he was trying to reclaim a fragment of peace for his conscience, or perhaps he simply couldn't bear the weight of potentially causing his former mother-in-law's death. Later still, I heard that he sold his company in New York and left the city filled with irony and ridicule. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. My mother's life finally came to a stop on a sunny autumn morning. She passed peacefully. She said she dreamed of my dad, said he was waiting for her on the other side, scolding her for being late. She didn't suffer. In her final days, she was genuinely happy, watching me slowly step out of the shadows and begin a new life. The small coastal town we lived in was wonderful, slow-paced, warm-hearted, with a bit of money I'd secretly saved over the years, plus a small business support loan from the local government. I opened a tiny flower shop. I called it Rebirth Floral. The shop wasn't big, but it was filled with sunlight. Every day I worked with flowers, trimming stems, arranging bouquets, watching different people buy flowers for different reasons, celebrations, apologies, confessions of love, memorials. All the many forms of life were wrapped up in those bouquets. I slowly learned to recognize different flowers, learned floral design. My hands grew rough, but my heart felt steady. The neighbors were kind. My roommate's husband and his wife often came by to help. The owner of the bookstore next door, a gentle, soft-spoken middle-aged widower with a young daughter, came by frequently to buy flowers. Sometimes we chatted about books, sometimes about children. It was ordinary, quiet. There was no earth-shattering romance, no luxury or excess. But I slept soundly. I no longer had nightmares. I no longer needed anyone to save me. I had pulled myself out of the ruins with my own hands. 2 years later, on a rainy day, I received a package. It came from a law firm in New York. Inside was a copy of Eric Wilson's death certificate and a notarized will. Eric was dead. He had died alone in a cheap apartment in some small European country. Cause of death, liver failure induced by acute alcohol poisoning. No one was with him when he died. The will was simple. All remaining assets under his name were to be left to me, Grace Lynn. The letter from the lawyers stated that Mr. Wilson had drafted the will 3 months before his death. While mentally sound, with video documentation, he had named me as his sole heir. I stared at the documents for a long time. Rain tapped softly against the flower shop's glass windows. Then I picked up a pen and signed my name on the Declaration of Renunciation of Inheritance. I attached a letter requesting that, after debts were settled, all of Eric Wilson's assets be donated to non-profit organizations in China that provide legal aid for women and hospice care for terminal cancer patients. Under donor name, I asked that they write, Helen Lynn. After finishing everything, I closed the shop early. When I got home, I opened the old box I'd brought with me from the north. Inside were a few things I'd never bothered to deal with, items connected to Eric, old photos, cards he'd written, insignificant keepsakes. I carried the box to the community trash collection area behind the apartment complex. I opened it, one by one. I threw everything away. Photos, cards, faded gifts, broken memories. The rain slowly stopped. Sunset light slipped through the clouds and reflected off the wet ground. When the box was empty, I tossed it in too. I dusted off my hands and turned to go home. Inside me, there was no sadness, no triumph, no emotional ripple at all. It felt like finally throwing out an old piece of furniture, dusty, useless, long overdue. My ties with Eric Wilson, with that 20-year marriage and the deception it was built on, were finally, truly severed. His final attempt to bind me was brushed away effortlessly. The door to my world that belonged to him was closed for good. Another spring arrived. In front of Rebirth Floral, the star jasmine I'd planted bloomed, tiny white flowers scattered like stars, their fragrance light and clean. I crouched at the entrance, trimming branches. The bookstore owner passed by with his daughter. The little girl ran up to me and handed me a piece of candy. "Ms. Grace, this is for you." I smiled and took it. "Thank you, sweetheart." Her father stood a short distance away, smiling. The sunlight outlined him in gold. He asked, "There's a community movie screening tonight. An old one, flipped. Want to come watch together?" I thought for a moment, then nodded. "Sure." His smile deepened slightly. Then, 6:30? Should I come get you? "No need. I'll walk over myself." "Okay." They left. The scent of jasmine drifted through the air. I stood up and looked toward the open sky at the end of the alley, clear, endlessly blue. Inside the flower shop, a radio softly played an unfamiliar old English song. I took a deep breath, filled with the smell of flowers and sunlight. What would the future look like? I didn't know. Maybe I'd have a new story with the bookstore owner. Maybe I wouldn't. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I knew my body belongs to me. My money belongs to me. My love, who I give it to or withhold it from, belongs to me. My life, every single step of it, is in my own hands. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer hurt. They had become part of my life's growth rings, reminders that shaped me. I was no longer anyone's accessory, no longer a supporting character in someone else's story. I am Gracelyn, and my story is just beginning. I turned back into the flower shop, picked up a watering can, and watered a newly arrived gardenia plant. Water flowed gently, soaking into the soil. Life has its own stubborn resilience, its instinct to grow toward the light. Like these flowers. Like me.